You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick both inside and outside of the music business. This week, Sarah talks with Sarah Thawer.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. Our guest today, Sarah Thawer, is known for her incredibly authentic and unique drumming style, as well as her fun and creative videos. Today, we are going to talk to Sarah about getting started in drumming at a very young age, playing with acts such as Watsky and her own band, and her very valuable advice about always being yourself and owning your own brand. Please join us as we cover these topics and more with Sarah Thawer. Sarah Thawer, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hi, Sarah Hagan. I'm doing fantastic because I'm here talking to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. It's great to see you and get a chance to catch up.
Yes, it's been a while.
It has been a little while. It's been over a year since I've actually seen you in person, which is rare because we usually get to see each other a few times a year. And, you know, we've all been in quarantine. How has that been for you?
You know what? I've used this time to chill out and do a lot of reflecting as to what I want to do with my life in terms of drumming and in music. I felt like before quarantine, it was like, go, rehearsal, go, tour, go, gig, go. Now it's like, okay, it's Sarah time. What does she want in her life? So just been making a lot of changes, writing a lot of music. It's been great. Yeah.
And that's important, I think, to recognize. And you and I have had that conversation a couple times over the past year where, you know, you're thinking, well, you know what, I think I'm not going to do that. I'm going in this direction and maybe I'll, you know, be a little choosier about what I'm spending my time doing. I think that's really important.
Yeah, totally is.
That's amazing. So I've seen, you know, you've been posting a ton, you have a lot going on. We're going to talk about all of that stuff, but I do want to kind of go back in time and talk a little bit about baby Sarah and how you got started, because you really were a very, very small child when you started playing drums. You were 2 years old, right? Which, I mean, I know 2-year-olds and I think about them playing drums, and there are these phenomenal players who start out at that age, and you're one of those players that started out playing when you were 2 and played your first gig at 5 or something, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. My dad is a musician. He was more so active back in the day, mostly Bollywood, Indian music primarily. And we would have instruments laying around the house all the time. And my mom would be working and he would babysit my twin sister and I on the drums and percussion. And he would blast out Bollywood music and we'd be running around the basement, hitting whatever we could. So my twin sister, she's 1 minute older than me. Her name is Farah. She had she didn't care about the drums. Mm-hmm. And it was me who was always playing, and she would have would have no attention for it. So my parents were like, oh, Sarah has a little something going on. And they supported it. They kind of let it flourish. And I was just always behind the drums. And I felt like it was normal actually to love the drums until I saw my sister being like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like,
well, I think it is normal, right? When you're a kid, rhythm and, you know, finding ways to make noise with things is just something that you do, even from a young age. And I think it depends if your parents kind of foster that and recognize it, or maybe they don't. And you and I have talked before about how, you know, you did start playing young and started playing gigs and playing with your father. But then when it came to doing that as a profession, maybe that wasn't something that they were so into.
No. So I'll get into that.
Yes.
So yeah, my parents, they're all modern. They call themselves modern, but, they're a little traditional in some senses. And, in the community, to be successful, whatever that means, doctor, lawyer, engineer. So my twin sister is really brainy and academic. So she was getting all the straight A's in school. And my parents were like, okay, Sarah can play these drums and we'll buy her whatever she wants, but secretly we're going to make this like on for her med school application, like not for her career. And then they saw that like, no, I want this to be my career. And then they first gave me a lecture saying that, why do you want to be a drummer? The drummer's at the back of the stage. Nobody cares about drummers. You're ruining your life. So what they did is they bought me all the drums. I played drums with my dad on stage, but they enrolled me in piano and singing classes for like 10 to 15 years. And when I say hate, this is one thing that I hated in my life, is these lessons every single week. It's crazy. But then they saw that I was taking it very seriously and then applied to school for it. And this ultimately made me self-taught. So now I'm grateful for it that I'm on the other side, that like my approach to drumming and music became very organic. Like it wasn't stickings. That's the first thing that I played. The first thing I played was and then on percussion is what I started on. Then how do I voice that on the kit? So it came from a very feeling perspective sort of thing. And so I'm grateful for it now, but it was a fun ride.
Yes. So sometimes you have to be that like young advocate for yourself. Like, I know this is what you want for me, but this is the direction I'm going in. And that's what I want to do. And I'm sure your parents are incredibly proud of you. What you've become and what you've made of yourself. It's just amazing.
It's funny. I mean, yeah, they're proud, but it's like my mom will say, you can still apply for your master's. And like one of her friends at work, like my mom's an engineer, so she met her friend at work and their son or daughter played piano or something or got a degree in music. And she's like, my friend's daughter is now applying for med school and she just has a music degree. I'm like, Mom, stop giving me these hints because it's not going to happen.
Right. I know that you can, make sure that they know that that's the direction you want to go in. And I think the same thing. Like you always think, well, someday maybe I'll go to law school. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. But this is, this is in you. This is your passion and you found it. And how great is that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think we are very, very, very blessed. All of us who play the drums. Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. And it's fun. Like to have something that's so fun be your career. We're lucky.
Yeah, we get to hit things for a living, basically.
Absolutely. So do you, like, thinking back to being a kid and playing gigs, how did you ever have stage fright, or was this always something that was so natural for you? Because you look so natural and comfortable and free, playing. Was it always like that for you?
It was always like that for me. It's like I felt that playing on stage or playing music is what was normal, just like eating food or like going to the toilet. For me, it was nothing abnormal. Funny enough, I felt that later on in life, like when I went to school for music, that's when I started getting like nervous and doubtful. But up until 18, I was having the time of my life. So it's interesting that like sometimes the institutions or societal pressures or Instagram or whatever, like that can really mess with your head. But before that, like no stage fright whatsoever. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think like anything, until you realize, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So early on you have that immediate, like, nothing can touch me, like no fear. And then you realize what could happen, or, you get those insecurities that come up. And, I think that kind of intimidates a lot of people from carrying on something that they love as a child and, maybe making a decision to go a safe route, where they're not putting themselves out there. But we're all happy that you made the decision to keep moving in that direction. And along those lines, your videos are so incredible and inspiring. And one of the first videos, maybe the first video that I ever saw of you, was you playing outside in the snow, playing a shovel. You have to tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yeah. So, okay, when I was like 16 or 15, that's when like YouTube started coming out. And that's when I was like, okay, now it's time to get creative. So I would play drums in my basement and I would go to my door and start making sounds with the locks. I would go in my mom's kitchen, take all of her pots. And then I remember a couple of years back, there was a huge snowstorm and everything got canceled. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go outside and make the most of it. So I got some help. We put my drums outside, took my mom's shovel. Let's make a video.
And it was just so fantastic. I think it showed anyone who hadn't ever seen you play your creativity. And that kind of follows through to everything that you're doing now. I can think of all of the different ways that you get creative with your drums, and the latest videos of you putting your foot on your drum. And I love the way that you are so unapologetic about anything you're doing. You're like, yep, I'm putting my foot on my drum and I'm probably going to keep doing it because I love it. And, I think that's really important because you have to have confidence in this industry. And your confidence comes through 100%. And, we've had the conversation before about how to deal with the negatives, things that come up that aren't so great. That don't feel so great, because there are people out there who will comment negatively on pretty much anything. It could be absolutely perfect in every way, and you'll get negative comments. And you kind of have a great perspective on that. Can you share that a little bit?
Of course. So one thing that I've been reflecting on a lot is, what's the definition of right or wrong? Really, if you look at the sky, I mean, we've been taught that the sky is blue. But what if you were born and someone said, hey, Sarah, the sky is purple, and you believed all your life that it's purple, then you have this belief system around purple. So technically there's no right or wrong. And I've been told so many things in my life, like when I started doing these funny rap videos, well, I mean, I find them funny, even if nobody laughs. But someone told me, Sarah, you're ruining your career. You got to display yourself all professional. And I'm like, what does that mean? Art is expression. Music is expression. And even some people were like, in that song that you played, the transition to the B section, you sped up a hair, or you slow down a hair, or you didn't fill in very smoothly, or if the bass player is not playing, you have to hit the cymbals and not hit the kick. And I'm like, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to reverse the rules and break the rules. So it's for me, it's always been about, what are my reference point in life? What are my reference points? Like back in the day, Tower of Power or whomever, you can see the drums were moving maybe a little fast, a little bit slower, because there's no technology. So right now, if I speed up or slow down, that's okay. It's a part of life. If I make a mistake, that's a part of life. It's okay. Just that nowadays, everyone's documenting things and everyone's editing to make it perfect, and that humanity is gone. So coming to the realization that drums is a vessel, that we are a vessel to kind of bring our spirit out. That's how I ultimately see music, and that's my headspace and where I'm at.
I love that. And I think that that's the most important thing. You're doing this in your way, and either people will gravitate toward that and they will appreciate it and understand it, or they won't, and that's okay, right? So there are plenty of other things to enjoy, and you're putting yourself out there in such a natural way. And I kind of call it your spoken word drumming, which is so good. I love it when you do those videos. And it kind of reminds me of an artist that you've played with, Watsky, like his style of putting spoken word into his music. And so, I love to see you doing that kind of thing and expressing yourself in that way. Totally different, mind you. But it does, it kind of reminds me of that style. And were you touring with Watsky when the quarantine happened, or were you supposed to be? I can't remember that time.
So 2 years back, we did a 2-month tour in US and Europe. And then right before the pandemic, we were rehearsing in LA to go on another 2-month tour. And we were on day 3 of rehearsal, and it said on the news, it's officially declared a pandemic. And we're like, uh-oh. Okay.
Right. And then you had to get home, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of home, you have your drum setup, you have your studio space, and I heard you're going to have a revamp of your studio space. So I can't wait to see. That is going to be fun. What do you have planned for the new videos? Do you have some things in mind that you're going to explore?
I have a lot of quirky, crazy ideas that I'm working on.
Perfect.
Soon to come, yeah. And I'm working with different musicians and producers. We're writing a lot of music, and a lot of fun stuff to come out. Yeah, stay tuned.
I love it. And I can't wait to see how you creatively explore the drums. But, you always like there's something about how you combine the Indian music with like the popular American music that is fascinating to me. And, I've had this conversation with other people too. It's just like it's something that you bring in, and you actually studied Indian music, right? And that was in college. Is that right?
So for me, like I'll go into a little bit of a tangent if you don't mind.
Please do. Absolutely.
So for me, growing up, it was a time where we had cassettes and CD players available. There was no YouTube at the time. So whatever our parents and families brought in, that's the only stuff that we had access to. So my dad would primarily bring in Indian and Bollywood music and Indian classical stuff too. And we would have drum sets and tablas and Indian percussion laying around the house. And all I heard in my ears were Indian percussion. So if you look in North America, right? When you look in North America, the drum set is center stage, and usually the percussion is kind of like an accessory complementing the drummer. In Indian music, generally the Indian percussion is center stage, and the drum kit is, funny enough, supporting the percussion. So listening to Indian music growing up, when I heard tabla, when I looked at the drum set, I heard a tabla. I didn't hear, like, I never listened to Steve Gadd or anyone that amazing growing up on the drum set. So that was my view of the drums, was like Indian rhythms that are on the drums. And it was a very natural thing that I did. And then I started taking tabla lessons. That's one thing that my dad put me in, is tabla lessons to understand the syllables, the rhythmic cycles. And so I played it for like 10 to 15 years. But then my heart was always on the drums. And then it got to a point where I was playing a lot of Indian festivals for different Bollywood artists that come from India and getting invited, blah, blah, blah. And they would only hire me and no other percussionist, which was not rare, but usually you would want some sort of loops or percussionist, because it's like popular music. If you have like a Katy Perry song and you don't have the lick of the Katy Perry song playing, everyone's going to be like, we didn't pay for this. We want to hear that sound. So for me, it was, how can I get the Indian percussion sound on the drums? So I would use my elbow for pitch bending on the floor tom. The cross stick would signify this, and finding very creative ways. So with the organic way of listening and the feeling and the groove of Indian rhythms and the sounds on the drum set, and studying the tabla with the academic syllables and the rhythmic cycles. And I feel like now I'm at a place where it's just like a part of my being, and I don't notice it that it comes out until people are like, Sarah, you have a sound. I'm like, really? They're like, Sarah, that's a cool Indian rhythm. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's just a rhythm. So it's interesting. Yeah.
That actually describes it perfectly, because when you're playing, it's so musical. Some people play drums and it sounds like drums. It sounds like a rhythm, a backing rhythm for other music. When you play drums, it sounds like music, and it comes through so naturally. And I wonder, are you, when you sit down to play, does it just come out? Like, it looks like it just comes out. Are you thinking a lot, or is this just like naturally coming out from what's inside?
To be quite honest, I don't think at all when I'm playing. Mm-hmm. If I'm in the zone or if everything's smooth, I don't think. When I'm anxious, my brain goes on fire. Then I have to settle down. But yes, I don't think. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I don't know if I've ever seen you anxious about playing before. I don't know.
Frozen Live. Oh my God. I was so anxious that day.
Okay. I take it back. I do remember that. I do remember that. That was high pressure for sure. But really, like, you can hear that it's just in you and it's coming out. And that excites me because, I've heard a lot of drumming over the past couple of decades, and to see someone play like you do, and to see it just so natural and musical, it's always amazing. So every time you post something, I'm like, yay, a new Sarah video, I love that. And like in your playing, so you naturally find inspiration from different styles of music, but do you I know that you do take inspiration from sound effects, video game sound effects, for sure. But is there anywhere else that you're finding inspiration from? How are you kind of like tapping into that creativity?
Yeah. This quarantine, especially, I've been literally trying to do everything. Like, I know at the beginning of the quarantine, I took my mom's, what is it, like you sweep the floor? Is it called a sweeper? I don't even know because I don't sweep the floor.
Broom.
The broom. The broom. That's how I know I need to do more chores around the house. So I took my mom's broom and I was like hitting it on the drums for fun, or like weird things like that.
So your mom is like, where is my shovel, Sarah? Where is my broom?
Yeah, absolutely. She doesn't like me right now, especially because we're all home together. In terms of like creativity, so I love popular music, like growing up, hip hop and like a bunch of stuff like that. So like, Soldier Boy or like whatever, I started cutting loops of them because their melodies were so catchy. And I'm like, I want to work on my inner clock. Like I want to work on my 7. So I took like Crank That Soldier Boy and I cut it into like different pieces. And then I would hit it on the 1 or I would hit it on the 2. And it's like in my mind, I want to make sure that I don't get lost. So groove and include the samples, then take a solo and include the samples. But then when you're coming back with the samples, hit the sample on different beats instead of always on the 1, leave the 1 open. So it's like just, it's my concept of like improvising and creativity is like literally what do you have in this moment and how can I use that? So that's taking away repetition, double time. So it's just like experimenting. Yeah.
I love that. And when you're creating those videos, are you imagining like playing with a band? I know you're stuck at home, you're you're figuring out ways to be creative on your own, but are you like daydreaming about the future or planning for the future?
Yeah, so luckily we've had different phases in Toronto. Like some lockdowns have been a bit easier, so we've had some gigs and stuff here and there. So I'm fortunate to say I haven't constantly been at home, so I've had some outlets in terms of playing with people.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I've been doing a lot of session work from home for like different people, so that's been like music related. But then when I'm just doing my own thing, like I don't care, like I'm just like literally doing my own thing and trying to think about if I had to go on stage one day, how would I present this, or what's my vibe like? And yeah, just exploring down that vein, I would say.
Absolutely. And shifting gears a little bit, you also post funny videos that crack me up. One of them recently was you talking about the shortening of the term "shaking my head," right? and how you were getting these comments or text messages with SMH and thinking, what is that? And it was so funny to me because I have the same experience all the time, and I joke all the time that I need like a dictionary of, and a lot of us do. Anyone who's like, I don't know, just of this generation, maybe we need like a book that translates. The other thing is emojis as well. I worry about emoji use because I'm thinking, does this mean something else? I don't know. I need to be careful. Best thing is the update on the iPhone that allows you to search for emojis by term, because then I'm like, this is safe. But I just had to, have some solidarity with you on that one because that video was so funny. And I was like, yes, I've had that same reaction. And just as, I translate some of those things for my parents, sometimes I have to translate them for myself too and Google it. Right. It's just too funny. Yeah. And one other thing I had to get into with you is something we've talked about over the years, just in conversation and in supporting each other too. Being a woman in this industry that is, I don't know what the percentage would be, but high 90s probably. On the playing side, on the industry side, of male, dominated field. And so like being a woman and connecting with you has been incredibly important. I find that the women that are in this industry are amazing human beings, like across the board. And the connection's pretty amazing because we are a small group, and the support that we have for each other has been pretty incredible. But how have you found that through the years? Is it changing? Are things getting better, getting different? How is it for you?
So I would say, we live, in my humble opinion, we live in an era right now where things are rapidly changing. Fortunately, technology, whatever it may be. So when I came into the industry, especially the drumming industry, I felt like there weren't visibly, I couldn't see that many people around me. But I find right now with Instagram and everything, you see amazing girls, women everywhere doing their thing, which is like so heartwarming. I guess like one thing that I would say that I personally continue to face is this opinion that like, oh, girls are getting so much screen time on social media, so they're always supported. It's like it's the guys who you have trouble, so why are they complaining? And I've had people like literally say this to my face or comment on my videos, and I'm like, you're just seeing this on a screen, like on a very superficial level. You don't know what happens, behind the scenes. Even just for instance, like for me personally, at nighttime when I'm walking to my car, putting my drums in my car, or if the parking spot is too far, it's like small things like that where you feel uncomfortable. And it's like, for me, like when I'm on tour, I don't want to explain myself. And then sometimes I feel scared when I'm alone, or I've had comments made to me sometimes. And, even like, I'm engaged with my fiance and I've told people that. And like, some people like, trying to pursue whatever. And it's like, they don't know where to draw the line. And it's like all these things being considered. And I remember I talked about this on a video with Drumeo, and it exploded on social media to the point where like, I had 60% of people saying, it happens, it's real. And then the other 40%, oh, she's like playing a victim card. She's a good drummer, but she needs to stop lying. And everybody faces these things. And I said, of course, everybody faces these things, but I'm just telling you my experience. And you unfortunately don't have the right to invalidate my experience, but like, off of that, something that I currently experience is like people's judgments, like if I want to wear like a cute top, or like, show a little bit of belly, or like wear, like booty, whatever, like, if you want to look good a little bit and you want to play the drums, there's always like, oh, she's getting more views online because she's dressing a certain way. Like if a guy is playing the same way and he's just like wearing a jersey or whatever, no one will say that kind of comment to him. And the playing could be equivalent, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I just recently saw Billie Eilish. She did a cover for Vogue, and she looked like she was wearing like lingerie and looked like beautiful. Like the comments that she was getting, that people are saying, oh, she's gone on the dark side, and because dressing, that means she's a changed person. And she's saying like, you do you, like, why are these judgments coming on the way that we look? The men surrounding me or that I have seen, I don't see judgments going on. Like a guy can play drums and have his like shirt off. Like that's okay. But if a girl wants to wear like a bikini, you can't do that. And you get like judge.
Right. Exactly.
So that's something like that I find constantly deal with.
I totally understand that. I see that 100%. I memean, the Billie Eilish example is the perfect example of that. This is a young woman. I mean, she's growing up, and she's changing her style, and that's 100% fine. Whatever she wants to wear, she's, beautiful, incredibly talented. However she wants to do her hair, the people that are like, I like her green and black hair, and I don't like her blonde hair. It's like, well, what business is that, of yours? Really, that's her hair. She could do whatever she wants with it. She could wear what she wants. I can see that. I've seen it in the comments on, things that you've posted and photos that you've posted. If you take a picture with your gear on, and we're going to talk about your apparel in a minute for sure. But if you take a picture, with your, your midriff showing, it's like people comment on it. And I'm thinking like, that's not your business. That's her body. And, so I think there is a total double standard. I know that there are some women who choose to drum in whatever they want to wear, and maybe it's covered up, or maybe it's a little, what people might deem to be like, oh, that's a sexy outfit. But like, that's a grown woman. That's her business, and you think about music. I think about musicians as incredibly creative people, and showing your creativity in what you wear, what your style is, how you do your hair. Like that's all part of it. That's part of your your identity as an artist, I guess is what I'm saying. And so, but I do think there is that judgment there. And I don't see that going away. I see the acceptance level, the more women. I like what you said about, how when you first started playing, you didn't really see other women playing, and that has definitely changed. I love the fact that social media has helped make that change. There are the groups, Drummer Girls United and the Hit Like a Girl organization, and it's comforting to know that like there is a really great group of talented female drummers out there. More for the support, just to see yourself in each other. I think that's important.
Totally. And some of the messages that I've gotten from people, like after speaking out about gender inequality, it's extremely sad that like these women have not talked publicly about it because they're either afraid, because of their position, or people won't accept or validate the trauma that they've been through. So it's like the ones who can speak publicly, I think it's our duty to, because
Absolutely.
Not everyone's going to get it, and we don't owe anybody an explanation.
Yeah. And I think, talking about it, advocating for each other, and then also being a great example for the next generation coming up of being strong and speaking up and being tough when you need to be tough, and also kind of like letting the hate roll off of you and move forward. I always say, like, if you're looking forward, you're looking to the future, and let it fall behind you and just keep going, and they can stay back there.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And we just touched on it, but I have to bring it up, the apparel. I want you to tell the story. You said you were like jogging, I think, recently, right? Or you're and you got some funny looks because your pants matched your face, and people were like, what is going on? But all of us who know and love you and love your drummer face, like, this is your apparel is just perfect.
Yeah, so like I got like my pants, I got these pants, joggers, that are on my website, sarahThawer.com, by the way. I got my face, so like one of them has like spots on them, and then one of the pants have like one big face on like either leg. And I do my 2 to 3 run cardio every week, and I was doing my run, and like I could see like people's eyeballs, like they didn't want to look at me because I think they thought I was crazy, so they were like just looking at me like that, and I'm like, yes. For me, like the apparel and stuff that I've done, it basically just literally signifies like, be bold, whatever that means for you. Like being bold doesn't mean like, run around the street screaming. It could just mean like sitting in a quiet corner, but whatever bold means in your comfort level. Like, don't be afraid to stick out of the crowd. Don't be afraid to be wrong, take risks, and literally just like be the best version of yourself. And I feel like these, sometimes I find the simplest things in life are always overlooked, and they're seen as cliches, but these things mean a lot to me. And that's what the apparel basically represents. It's just a lot of fun, just trying to be authentic. Yeah.
Yes, be authentic, and you are authentic all the time, and I love that about you, Sarah. And I love when you talk about be okay with making a mistake. Take a risk and be okay with making a mistake. I think that's life advice right there. It applies to the drums, it applies to music, but it also applies to life, because I can't remember a time where I took a risk on something, and not a dangerous risk or any of that, but like a risk on, well, this could work out great and it might not. But I can't remember a time that I took a risk like that and it wasn't at least an incredible learning experience, whether it was the right thing at the time or it worked out great. I learned from it. And I think that's the most important thing.
I 100% agree. And even like when you're making a mistake and then sometimes I feel like if I decide to do something and then I'm like, I could be wrong, but there's this little hope in you saying, you think you're wrong, but no, you're probably going to be right. And then when you're wrong, it's like you're absolutely crushed that you're wrong. And so for me, my tendencies are to like go to my surrounding and say, did I make the right decision? I'm like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it's like, the more I have put myself out there, the more mistakes that I've made. I've seen these opinions of people, of me being wrong. The opposing side has agreed more and more. So, but I don't agree. And I'm like, you know what? This is just challenging me to be thick-skinned. And no matter if everybody says no, I'm like, I know what I'm doing is right. One example, the metric modulation challenge. I think we spoke about this briefly. Everybody wants to rule the world. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm going to take this up a notch, So play, do a little spoken word, show some independence, just have a fun time, and the video exploded. Like on Facebook, it's like almost at 1 million views. And on whatever, Instagram, it's like crazy.
Wow.
And literally the same day when I posted it on Instagram, I lost 500 followers. And I was like, what have I done with my career? People started saying, like, has Sarah like started acid? Like, is she on drugs in the quarantine? And then people started posting memes like, at the time the vaccine wasn't out. So someone posted the vaccine. I got the vaccine and it didn't hurt and it had my face on it. Like, you know.
Oh no.
It's funny. But it's like, that's the response that I got. And like some of my peers at the time or people that I looked up to were like, this is evidence that you're doing the wrong thing. The people unfollowing you and like making fun of you, this is evidence. And I'm like, I don't care that this is the evidence because it feels right to me.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the most important piece of all of this, right? You're doing what you feel is right, what you feel inside, what your creative expression tells you to do. And it's working. I mean, so you lost those followers. I'm sure you've gained them back by now, and then some. And the popularity of the video, it says something because it was out there in a great way, and it just showed everything about you, your creativity and your kind of like power coming out. I loved that video, and the 1 cents, fantastic. I mean, I can't wait for more. And speaking of more, you have plans for more videos. Do you know what's coming up for you like later this year? I know things are opening up and some tours are being booked and things like that. What are you looking toward for the future?
Yeah, I mean, in the near future, I have some stuff like that I can't talk about, but it's like some stuff are like non-drumming related, but drumming related for different things, which is like I'm really excited about. I'm just trying to like venture off and like try different things that I feel like I have interest in. But my ultimate dream is to play with my heroes that I have written down on a piece of paper, but ultimately is tour under my name and headline my own tour. So that's something that I'm working on and writing music with a lot of amazing people. And I got my visas to like stay in the States right before the pandemic hit. And it was like super expensive and it sucked. 'Cause right when I got it, pandemic hit and it's last 3 years and I lost a year, which sucks. I know, but I'm going to renew it. But anyway, I get my second vaccine in August and then right away I'm going to like head to LA and just start making these moves and making these dreams a reality. So.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And I love that you're planning on, touring with your band under your name. And I think that's the perfect direction for you. We've talked a little bit about owning your brand and, the apparel is a step right for that. And I love that. I mean, what do you think about, other artists? What advice would you give to them about in regards to owning their brand?
Yeah, one big advice that I would give is that, it's like a university application. And the reason I say this example is because I never got all universities that I applied for declined me. I only got accepted into one because I didn't fit the criteria. In life, there is no criteria. Really. And it's like you could have everything planned, all your I's dotted, T's crossed, and one day nothing goes as planned. So what I say is what is important to you? What do you want your brand to be? Like, I feel a lot of people are like, no, we have to have apparel. No, you don't. We have to have an album. No, what do you want? And I feel like when you really figure out what do you want, then I find that the success, or it's like it's the natural law of life or nature. It'll just like manifest in your life in the best way possible, rather than trying to force things to compete against somebody else, or to one up someone else, or to just check mark a box. That's there's no such thing as comparison. Better or worse is man-made, in my opinion. Everybody is beautiful and amazing just the way they are. And once you realize what works for you and what means most to you, I feel like, the sky's the limit. So that's my advice.
That is incredible advice. I love that. And I feel like once you reach that point in your life, it's really easy to see that in other people. It's easier to see the beauty around you and to not get caught up in comparisons, right? Well, once you've kind of like settled on, okay, this is who I am, and you're accepting of yourself, and you know yourself, you know who you are, and you're okay with that. I think it's much easier to then look around you and be like, wow, I'm surrounded by beautiful, wonderful other humans. So I love that advice. And also the part about like not forcing it. And I think of my experience, and anytime I need to be creative, if I have a reason where I need to think about something and come up with a creative idea, if I like sit down with a pen and a paper, nothing's going to happen there. It's just, I can't do that. I can't just push that and make it work. If I am driving somewhere and just not thinking, then that's when the ideas come. When I am in the shower and have white noise or something, like, there's something about that not thinking that helps you think, or not trying to think about it. So I like that, not forcing it. And that kind of shows in your drumming too, because as you said, you're not sitting down being like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. You're letting it come out. You're letting the creativity come out.
Yeah. And in improvising, which is in drumming, music, and in life, it's like when you're walking down the street, you're not thinking right, left. You're going, So that's when I'm playing drums, I'm not going paradiddle. I mean, at the beginning, that's okay. But if you go that, then you're like getting into the rhythm of something, and automatically it's like you're into this flow state of everything just kind of flowing naturally. I love the show Big Bang Theory. You've probably heard, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sheldon Cooper, before he made his giant discovery, he took a job as, I think, like taking out the garbage in like a Starbucks or something like that, because he didn't want to think. As soon as he was like taking out the garbage, the idea shot at him and he got it, instead of sitting there trying to figure it out.
Yes, that is the perfect example. One experience that I had that kind of relates to our connection was in the Zildjian factory, when I was, learning about the machinery and the process of cymbal making. There would be periods of time, say, 4 hours at a time, where I was at one machine pushing a button, using a screwdriver, putting a cymbal on, pushing another button. And that repetition, at that point, I hadn't had 4 hours of continuous in my own head thinking. And that just kind of like put a light bulb on for me. I was thinking like, I need more of that kind of time, where I'm actually just letting my brain do its work. Because that is when things come to you, when you're not thinking about thinking. You're just, kind of in your head. And I just recently, this makes me think of something else, which is the people who have like an inner dialogue. Have you had that? Have you read about that or had that conversation? Like, some people have an inner dialogue all the time that's just constantly going. And then there are other people who don't have that kind of like voice in their head, which is like their own voice. It's not hearing voices, but it's your own voice talking to you. And I think that's interesting. I wonder how that correlates to creativity as well.
Yeah, like my opinion, or with my personal experience with that, is like, I've hard based on science. Like we have 10,000 thoughts a day or something like that. And our brains, from my understanding, it's kind of like a computer, or it's kind of like Facebook. You're just scrolling down and you don't have control over whatever. Mm-hmm. So I always try to, like, I do some meditation here and there, and like a lot of mindfulness practice. So it's like you can sort of separate yourself from what the noise is in your brain rather than what your heart or what your gut is telling you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think when you kind of quiet the doubts or the constant thoughts, or, oh, I didn't, switch the laundry or something, you know what I mean? Like all those things that go through your head. Meditation is just amazing for that, and for, letting your creativity flow, I think. So many of my favorite drummers are into meditation. So I think that says something for sure. But yeah, I appreciate your insights so much, because, it's always great to talk with you and get some really great advice and hear what you're up to. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today and for sharing your life with us and for always being so authentic. We all appreciate that.
It's always a pleasure hanging with you and chatting with you. And I just can't wait to do more.
Yes, absolutely. In person, sometime soon.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll take care and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.